Hello there, Loud here. So you want to make comics. Well, lucky for you, I'm a comic artist. I've doodled comics when I was younger, and I'm currently posting a comic called Mage's Journey on Webtoon. I picked up a few tricks about lettering, paneling, coloring, etc. So I'm here to walk you through my process, show off my tricks, and help you make some comics. I'll be doing a casual scene with my characters Willies and Seely, and I'll show examples of each step of my process and explain how it works. With all that said, let's get into it. So the first step of comic creation is thumbnails. Thumbnails are basically really rough and messy sketches of what you want to make. Here, mistakes are free game. You can make as many as you need to, and I do 2 rounds of thumbnails for my comics. One set in my sketchbook and another in my iPad. This way I can edit my composition and placement of characters and see what I have space for. This is a time for experimentation and see what angles work and what properly sets the scene. It's also good for establishing shots that set up the environment your characters are in. Next up is lettering, adding dialogue to your comic. Now you might think that this is one of the final things to do when making a comic, but it's actually very crucial that you do this before you start doing your official sketches. And the reason for that is that there's only so much room on the panel when you're doing the comic, so you've got to consider how much space the word balloons are going to take up. You don't want to draw a really good expression or the like, only to cover it up because as you saved lettering for last. The standard size of the word balloon is that you should fit a capital H inside each corner of the balloon. So write your words so you know where they're going in on the page. Now it's paneling. I use Clip Studio's panel tool to build my panels, and since I map the panels when I thumbnail the page, I can just go over it with the panel tool. However, if your program of choice is not Clip Studio, then I recommend looking up how to make comic panels in said program. Finally, you can start sketching. Finalize the details before the line art. How I do it is I lower the opacity of my thumbnail, then I sketch the bases in black, and then sketch the details in red. Make sure you have references of your characters and backgrounds. Also, remember to keep things simple. You're going to end up drawing the same thing a lot, so it's best to keep things simple and easy to remember. That doesn't mean don't add flair, but if you're consistently failing to add certain details to your character while you draw them, then it's best to forego that detail entirely and keep what's memorable. I use a rough pencil brush for my sketches because I like the texture. Now you can start line art. Lower the opacity of your sketches and line everything. Keep an eye on your line weight. I tend to have a very line art style, but the general rule is that the closer something is to the camera, the lines are. The furthest are thicker. Then it's dependent on your personal preference for line art, but it's something to consider. I use a textured noise ink brush for my line art. It looks most crisp. Now it's time for the base colors. Normally I have a more complicated method for coloring my art, but for comics I just use the eyedropper and bucket tool and fill in any gaps or erase any leaks as I go along. This is to save time and space. My regular method of coloring takes up a lot of layers. I'll put up a video of how many layers I ended up having when I used my usual color method. Don't be afraid to use the quick tools. It saves time and layers. It also saves you from pain. I'll take this chance to mention and that it's good that you have to remember to take care of your hands when you're doing a lot of repetitive drawing, in like comics or in animation. If your hand gets sore, stop, take a break, and stretch. Things like carpal tunnel are serious, and we want to prevent them. Time for rendering. Things like shading, lighting, and blending. I usually do the shading first, mainly out of habit, For shading, you want to put a layer above your base colors, clip mask it, set the layer to multiply, and lower the opacity depending on how intense you want your shadows to be. Use the dominant color of your background for the shading. This is because of how light bounces off your character's surroundings. This is called ambient light. For lighting, use the color of your direct light source, such as yellow from the sun. The lighting layer is a similar setup to the shading, except the main difference is the blending mode. When you're going to set it to either soft light, hard light, or vivid light, depending on the atmosphere you want. I usually use soft light in all my settings because it's easier on the eyes. Blending modes help set the mood. Overlay is my most used one because depending on what color I use for the overlay, it can set the mood for the scene. Airbrush, blend, and blur are also really useful. Now you have a fully rendered comic page for posting. But before you do, you make sure you double check the size requirements of the comic site of your choice. You can adjust the size when you export, but if you're looking to print your comic, draw at 300 dpi. That's my comic tutorial. Happy drawing, have fun, and in the meantime, stay loud, stay proud.